Hello again. This is a continuation of my list build series. It's been a while, but I'm back to it with some more lists. Again, explained for rookies, but maybe not for rookies themselves. It's just the lists that, like the first time you go to a tournament, you might encounter this list and be all, oh my god, Bo didn't say anything about this one. What is this? This is madness. And today I am going to talk about the flammer list, the barbecue list. Now, let me start by explaining what it is. The flammer list is typically done with Soviets or Americans, because those two armies can take engineers that are regular, which makes them cheaper, more accessible, and you can have more of them. What you do is you take 3 or maybe 4 engineer squads, possibly a 5-man unit. That is good because it keeps the cost down, and then you equip them with a flamethrower. That means suddenly you have 3 to 4 flamethrowers in your list. If you throw in a flamethrower team as well, then it means that you have 4 to 5 flamethrowers in your list. Now it becomes really dangerous. The next bit that you need, because as long as you're just on foot, you're not really a threat to anyone, right? 6-inch range is not very good. But what you can do is you can buy transport for everything. So you buy for your flamer team, you buy a Jeep. For maybe if you have Americans, you buy Dodges, right? Dodge trucks, they are cheap and they are readily accessible, and you can have your engineers in them. They can carry 5 men. So then you have a super mobile force of flamers, and flamers are really good because they can kill anything. Anything you point them at, they can kill that. Tanks still have to take the test to disappear with a possible -3 for morale because they've taken all the pins. And light tanks, 8+ armor, 7+ armor, they will die to a flamer. Easy as chips. They simply cannot, because they're hitting the top, everything, it just dies. It does. And if it doesn't die, it gets pinned out at least for 1 turn. And if it doesn't do that, it may even run away, right? So tanks, they die. Infantry, you can expect to kill at least some of a unit that you hit with a flamer. But what's even better is that morale test. That morale test will quite often make the infantry run away. So it's a very cheap, very effective way of killing a whole unit. So basically anything you point them at can get killed by a flamer. The only thing that is maybe not so good at killing is small teams, because that's one of the minuses that to hit that a flamer can actually get. It can get a minus to hit because it's a small team. And most often you'll be hitting on 3s or 4s, right, with a flamer. Especially if you have a mobile one where you sit in the truck, you go up, you run up the truck, you go out of the truck, and now you're really close to the enemy, and then you flame, right? So most of the time you should be at least within the 6, but possibly also within the 3. That makes it a 3 to hit. So, I mean, this is an army that can kill everything. It gets even better if you run it as Soviets, because as Soviets you have easy access to flamethrowing armored cars, the BA-20, and flamethrowing cheap tanks, the OT tanks. Both of those are pretty cheap for what they do. And some of the OT tanks, although they sometimes you'd run into something that's 9+ and has a heavy anti-tank gun as well, which makes it expensive. But since it has a flamer, it becomes really killy. Some of those tanks can shoot one direction and use the flamer in the other direction. It's brilliant. So as Soviets, you can basically push up to 7 flamers into an army if you can find the points. That is insane. That amount of flamers is insane, and it's the amount of flamers that makes this list work. Because when you have flamers, one of the main detriments of a flamer is, of course, that you can run out of fuel. And you will, of course, do that at inopportune moments. I always do this. I always miss with my flamers. I always miss with my anti-tank weapons. But if you have 7 of them, they're not all going to miss. And they're not all going to run out. So the redundancy is what makes this list work. And it can be very daunting as a rookie to face this. I would, however, not recommend you as a rookie starting out trying to build and run this list. It is difficult to run and run well. So maybe, and by the way, it's not a very nice list. It's a highly competitive, win at all cost list. So don't be that guy, right? I'll take it. So the detriments of this list, well, it does run out. But since you're not relying on flamer teams for all your flamers, when you run out with the engineer squads, you don't die. Because, I mean, if your flamer team runs out, it's destroyed, right? The enemy gets the dice. But you don't do that with engineers. So that detriment is lessened because you're using engineers to do this. But you are a bit vulnerable to the enemy going down on ambush and killing your transports as you move up. That's the thing that you have to figure out. How do I actually make my units get within that striking range without the enemy getting shot as I move up? And you can use artillery observers for this. That can work. You can use multi-launchers as well. That can also work. But you have to figure out anyways. That's one of the main weaknesses. You have to figure out a way to get up there. But if you can, it can be very rewarding. Also, you're a bit vulnerable to snipers. If you are facing, for instance, Finns with their good snipers, they might pull out your flamethrowers as soon as you pull them out of your trucks and just kill them. So that is also a problem. The final thing that you are vulnerable to, and this is very specific, but at least here in my meta, a lot of people are running paras, like British paras or American airborne, and all of those have stubborn. And stubborn pretty much fucks over the flamers because that moral test that you have to take, that test to see if you stay in the game, that goes on to their full morale, which means that they're rolling on a 10 most likely because they're a veteran, right? So they're not going to run away easily. Although it does happen to me a lot, but it shouldn't, right? It shouldn't. So depending on how many stubborn troops you have in your local meta, flamers might be less effective. They are mostly effective against large units of troops with poor morale. Although, be wary of Japanese bamboo spearfighters. It seems like an obvious target, right? That you throw up your flamers against them and you flame them and they run away and die. But there is this with how flamers work with fanatics, where I'm not actually sure that the flamer will make your troops run away. So you have to figure that out. Maybe look it up somewhere. Cool. That was what I had to say about flamer lists, the barbecue.